Harvard Business Review says 65% of startup companies are failing because of people problems. Most promotional and hiring decisions are made based on previous qualifications or past performance. About 40% of these promotions don't work out within the first 18 months. Imagine a world where you're sitting at your computer and there's a capability, call it a bot, where it is ingesting your transcript data and it's creating a pattern recognition about your leadership capacity, your ability to function under complexity and pressure over time. And that information is going to be really valuable when you go for that promotional hire. What we've done is taken a body of human psychology research, digested it using AI, come up with like the main predictors of leadership success in high pressure environments.
All right. Welcome back, listener. Today, I have a very special guest on. This is Logan Yonavjak, and she is nearby. She's in Durham, North Carolina, and, I'm in Knoxville. I was going to say North Carolina. I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, and she has some really interesting stuff going on. She's the founder of Founder Readiness Institute, and what they do is they use AI to analyze transcripts to give the client or the employer such an informed decision. Informed decision making is what we do at Be Known, and I'm really excited to talk with Logan here today. Logan, thanks so much for hanging out with me today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah. So I barely scratched the surface on that. I'd love for you to give the listener just an overview of Founder Readiness Institute and how you're the founder of Founder Readiness Institute. What y'all do
Yeah.
for people?
Well, I like to start with the current status quo, and that is that most promotional and hiring decisions are made based on previous qualifications or past performance or credentials or potentially a warm intro. And that's leading to some success, but we're seeing in a lot of middle market companies, for example, call it like 200 to 10,000 employees, we're seeing about 40% of these promotion hires, these promotions don't work out within the first 18 months. Um, we're getting, especially with AI, thousands of, applicants per job. Um, and we're using resumes primarily to make decisions based on whether someone's a good fit for a position. And all the while, we're also seeing so much more complexity in the market. Like AI every single day is throwing a wrench in business as usual, if you will. So it requires a different mindset and a different set of abilities and behavioral characteristics to actually succeed in today's market. And so these previous ways of making decisions about whether someone's a good fit for a role, especially in senior leadership roles, is not up to the task. So we like to say past performance does not equal future leadership capacity. And that's really the problem that we're coming in to solve. So imagine a world where you're sitting at your computer and there's a capability, call it a bot or a capability, where it is ingesting your transcript data from everything from calls that you're having with employees or other employees or sales calls, Slack messages that you're having with your colleagues, and it's creating a pattern recognition about your leadership capacity, your ability to function under complexity and pressure over time. And that information is going to be really valuable when you go for that promotional hire or to really chart a course for like getting ready for the next promotion. So those are the kinds of kind of future states that we're seeing in the market and possibilities that are available right now.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember before I started my firm, then it was at the tail end of college. And I remember sprucing up my resume and also looking at all my friends and they would just get so stressed out at their resumes. And now, 10 years into this, I'm thinking, man, the amount of times I've just flashed through resumes so fast. I know there's that's just the tip of the iceberg to what y'all can do, but I resonate with that. If somebody's if I see weird colors on a resume, boom, it's it's out.
They're out.
And I hate to say that just between you and I, nobody else is listening, of course. It's out. And so I'm glad that you're providing this solution. Now, who exactly is the right type of business for this? Is it well? Tell me about the business size, the right type of business, who you best work with.
Yeah, absolutely. So, our target is CHROs, COOs, sometimes CEOs, depending on who's making the decision about. Right now, we're focused on promotions and solving execution risk. But we can also do a lot with hiring as well. So we got
Okay.
started early 2025. So we're
Yeah.
still kind of figuring out our exact target customer in the sense of like our rollout go to market. But these middle market companies say between 200 and 10,000 employees, where there's like a clear HR function. They're making a lot of promotional decisions. And, it can be in the financial services industry, healthcare. We can really target a lot of, I would say, fast paced, um, growing industries with a lot of innovation. And that's where we're going to play best because again, we're really trying to come in and if you want to put it simply, who's going to be able to function best with AI? Who's going to be able to manage the complexity that's coming our way that we all feel and we're all feeling some sense of fear around it too, right? Like
Yeah.
there's fear and opportunity, but there's going to be opportunity for people who know how to manage this level of complexity and pressure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, when we think about AI opportunity, what are some of the opportunities that you're seeing with the clients that you work with, 2,000 to 10,000 employees? I definitely don't work with those types of organizations, so I'd love to hear from a much larger business or entity perspective.
Yeah, so we have one client right now who is actually this is more on the hiring side, but who basically is having this issue where they have about they just put out an application or a request for kind of middle market or I'm sorry mid set what am I they just put out a request for a hire middle management and they got about 1,000 resumes. And they are just having this question of like, how do we actually sift through this pool of candidates?
Yeah.
So what they want to do is take our application and once they down select to about 20 that they want to interview, they want to actually run all of their transcripts or what they can provide to us,
Yeah.
what the prospective hires can like provide to us. And then we'll do our analytics and provide them with a leadership capacity score, essentially,
Yeah.
that they can then use in making that final decision.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's an immense number of resumes. I do not envy them. Hey, between you and I would love more applicants for some of the jobs that I have open. So it's interesting. I feel like there's been a shift ever since COVID, and we always talk about that, like shift since COVID. But I see it with the job posts that I put out there and the applicants that are applying. Um, my previous sources of applicants kind of dried up, meaning like the job boards, the groups, etc. And a lot of them use AI in their applications now. As expected, I would hope that they leverage technology, but with that said, I want to circle back to that. I want to hear some of your fears, or maybe even some of the clients' fears with using AI and kind of the impending, huh, what's coming?
In terms of, yeah, I mean, I think there's on both sides, both prospective hires and employers are feeling this question mark of like, how is all of this going to shake out? I don't know that we're going to know for a couple of years. I think there's so
Yeah.
much transition happening. Um, what we keep pointing back to is that so if you take what we do, we use transcript data to evaluate patterns in speech and interaction that can translate into how the person is likely going to think, behave, and act under pressure over time.
Yeah.
And so when you think about your ability to hold complexity, it's really the ability to juggle multiple balls at once, stay centered, and not get too emotional or attached to what's happening. And that's a set of skills. And you can grow that skill set, but people are kind of starting at a certain range and tolerance. And so when we think about there's like a myriad of tools that are being employed, but I think the result that we're seeing is that there's like more and more information coming at us, but how do we
Mhm.
actually digest and strategically use that to make decisions? So
Yeah.
AI can spit out tons of insight, but it's like, who's going to know what to do with that and be able to parse it out and do something strategic with it? And that's
Yeah.
exactly what we're measuring.
Excellent. Funny enough, I have a vault of our proprietary AI prompts and actually just launched this to some strategic partners. They're integrating our prompts into their offer for their clients to have. What I'm getting at is one of the core prompts in there, besides the webinars, VSLs, funnels, copywriting, is what I call the distiller prompt, and it takes a lot of the AI fluff that it can give you, or pages and pages of notes that it can pop out, and it distills it down into the truth, like the 1 to 4 sentences that you need to know based on that. And
Sounds helpful. It really does.
yeah,
I
yeah,
was wrestling with it this morning. I was like using different AIs to try to condense something
yeah.
for an investor. So,
Well, I'm happy to share the prompt with you offline here. And listener, if you want the prompts, beknownonline.com/prompts. Shameless plug. I didn't think I'd share that, but that link will be up forever. So I'm curious, Logan, why this? How did you get into this? What's the backstory here?
yeah, well, I saw a lot of people problems in my career. I've been in the investing world, primarily done a lot with private equity and early stage investing.
Yeah.
I started my career being, I mean, I'm very passionate about it still, but nature based investing. So I focused on agriculture and forestry related investment strategies for a variety of different firms. And I had a previous startup that did capital raising. It was like a boutique investment banking group. And then I've just worked as a consultant. And so I've been on a lot of teams. I've seen a lot of leaders. I've seen this sort of patterns of what seems to work and what doesn't. And I've also taken a lot of leadership assessments kind of throughout my career. And I don't think many of them are very good. They're very static. They tend to be diagnostic, but they don't really help you predict or develop a roadmap for yourself to grow
Hmm.
as a leader.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a combination of like thinking, why do we have so many, and this was coming from VC, why are so many startups failing because of people problems? So I ran into this stat just kind of doing research out in the world, but Harvard Business Review says 65% of startup companies are failing because of people problems, essentially.
Yeah. Okay.
Internal dynamics, team strife, leadership failures, burnout. And it just seems like we can do better. Um, and that's just a stat from the startup world. But what about, Fortune 500 companies, 100 companies, middle market companies? Like they're all experiencing some version of this. And so I just got really excited when AI came out with the capability of kind of transforming the assessment industry and looking at deeper patterns within speech and how people are presenting themselves and how they think and behave. And I think we can just do a lot with AI now. And it was an exciting time to try this out.
Gotcha. So you went from there to this. What was the seed? What was the moment that you knew that you said, I've got to start this for myself? I've got to do this. Do you remember?
Well, I was talking to my now co-founder. He was finishing his MBA. He has a um, master's in psychology, data science, and he also has an MBA. And he was finishing up his MBA program. And I pitched him on this idea. At the time, it was more for the venture capital industry, which is we've now pivoted. But he looked at me and he goes, "I think you have something there. That's a really good idea." And I think it was that confirmation from someone who was willing to go into business with me on this idea that really gave it the fuel, at least for me, to launch it.
Yeah. And is he still with you?
Yes, yes.
Excellent. Yeah, it's great. So that was then. Now is now. What are some of the tribulations, challenges, trials that you've faced as a younger entrepreneur here with this venture?
Yeah. So, I actually took some time a couple years ago to take some classes on tech commercialization because in my MBA program, I studied asset management and I kind of wanted some more startup experience, and it's a nearby university. So I thought, I'm going to dive in and become a student again. And along the way, I learned the importance of customer discovery, like the deep importance of actually talking to people who might buy your product.
Yeah.
And, even going through that process, so I originally, the conception of this was, how do we get the venture capital industry to leverage a tool like this, a people analytics tool, a people analytic diagnostic layer, if you will, to make better investment decisions? And it turns out that a lot of them said, yes, this would be a great idea. But when it came down to actually, paying for the tool,
Hmm.
there just wasn't a lot of willingness to pay. And so I think we spun our wheels the first couple months that in our existence, just talking to VCs and trying to like beat that drum. So later last fall, we started to pivot to the middle market companies. And I think that it's interesting because a lot of the people I told about the pivot said, you know what, that's a much better idea, but they hadn't said that they didn't think the VCs were the best market. So it's just a funny how like information comes out as you go. But I think uh the main thing, one of the things I've continued to underscore for myself and like thinking about being a founder and just the role is that you really do have to pivot strategically and not be attached to any one like customer base. I was a little bit attached to the VCs, but I was really happy with my willingness to like actually let that go as a primary
Mm,
target client. So
yeah.
I think that's been one of our major, and also just realizing that B2B enterprise sales is a long process and it takes time for people to get comfortable with your brand and trust and all of that. So like hiring a good salesperson as soon as you can is also something that I've realized
Hmm.
is really important. I could say more. I have so
Yeah.
many thoughts on this.
Well, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
I've kind of landed my helicopter here because I want to unpack the market research side of things because that's paramount to what we do. It makes or breaks client success. And I work with a much smaller um, type of business, and when I'm working with clients, they come at it from I have this certain expertise. I've packaged this expertise into coaching, consulting, advising, some sort of expertise driven offer. And that's the hill they're going to die on. And when I come in, I'd say 30% of the time I'm having to bust up, tell them their baby's ugly. and no, typically they take it very well, but market research is what leads us to that decision, talking to prospects, talking to even their clients. And I want to hear from you how you just some of the aha moments you realize when talking to people, talking to real people and not just guessing based on assumptions.
Yeah, and it's been such a rich journey, and I really want to say that because despite the fact that, a lot of the early um conversations we had didn't yield, the results I was hoping for in terms of sales, it really was like one of those you can't it's like unless you have this much on the line, there's certain lessons you can't necessarily learn, like viscerally learn. And so I feel like I'm really actually deeply learning some lessons that I can impart some wisdom finally on the entrepreneurial front. But I think, in some of the interesting feedback was, um, people, a lot of VCs think that part of their special sauce or secret sauce is reading people. And so, even if you're presenting them with a more objective way, unbiased way in many ways of reading a potential leader, some people went as far as to say, even if we had this, we probably wouldn't use it. Um, and I just thought that was fascinating because there is this element of like, this makes a ton of logical sense if you think about it. If you're investing in innovation, most of the, especially pre-seed and seed rounds, are about the team. Like, you'd think it would, and you have 65% of companies failing because of people problems. Like, you'd think it would make sense to have some layer of analytics that could augment your decision making. But it
Yeah.
turns out a lot of VCs just feel like they have that covered. Um,
But do they? Let's
well, that's,
No, do they though? What are they using that helps them in this process, if anything at all?
I can tell you it's gut checks,
Ooh, that's a good one.
reference checks, and warm intros. That's
Oh
the
man, that's a recipe for a terrible soup.
well,
Man, okay.
I think it works for some people, right? But most VCs aren't outperforming the market. And
Yeah.
so there are certainly people who, like any other skill, are very good at reading people, but the majority of people are going to be mediocre at it. It's kind of like the bell curve. Um, and so yeah, that was an interesting takeaway. It's not for all VCs, please don't get me wrong. I've talked to
Yeah, of
about
course.
125. And some of them do use assessment tools. Some of them, very few, I'd say less than 10%, use
Okay.
anything formal.
Yeah.
So that then in and of itself, it you makes you realize that a lot of human decision making is not logical.
Well, yeah, there's so many marketing books on that one. One book that came to mind, I'm sure you've read this, but listener, this is a great book when you're in growth mode. It's called Who, and it is by, I believe, Jeff Smart, and it talks about putting in place structures for hiring decisions, interviews, and reference checks. But this would be before you engage with somebody like Logan. In Logan, within this book, they talk about go from voodoo hiring to structured hiring.
I love that voodoo hiring.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's
It's
woo. I feel good about them.
and again, it's why not have that that's always where I've been coming from. It's like, keep doing that. Like, make your ultimate decision based on your gut, but like, why not have this extra layer of insight? So
No, that's good.
it's perplexing, but that's what one of the main takeaways that and also that people were more interested in having it post check writing. So like, supporting companies after they'd made the decision,
Yeah,
and then having this be like a layer of where you could continue to coach the founder or founding team.
gotcha. Okay, makes sense. Well, we can talk for a long time about the market research side of things. I want to shift over to the software side, and I know whether or not that's your forte or not. You as the founder, you have a hand on it somehow. But what are some of the challenges? AI changes all the time. Platforms come and go. Tell me about it. Have you built this from the ground up, or you plug it into systems? Don't give away the farm, please. Don't give away your IP. But tell me about some of the challenges you faced, and also some things that are like, wow, that's actually really cool. I'm glad I've learned that.
Well, yes, and just as the caveat, my co-founder has done the majority of the building of the tool.
Yeah.
I mean, what we've done is taken a body of human psychology research, digested it using AI,
Hmm.
come up with like the main predictors of leadership success in high pressure environments. Things like coachability, emotional resilience, purposeful agility. And we show the individual or team's level of ability to hold complexity and make decisions in complex and under high pressure situations. So, and then we've created a tool that can ingest any transcript data and find these patterns within it. Um, we've definitely leveraged AI. people ask us, why can't AI do this? Because it doesn't have the context for these later stages of human development and doesn't necessarily know how to score with precision. And so while we leverage AI, it's very much like a proprietary kind of scoring manuals
Okay.
and
Excellent.
process that we've used. And so I would say one of the things that we've learned is that AI is an amazing digester of information, but it's harder to make meaning out of it. Like, in order to create meaningful like insights for people to then take on their journey, I think there's a place in which the AI leaves off, and there's going to be continue to be a human component. Like, we're going to still have to be involved in quality checking the work of the AI to some degree for some time. And then you add in the coaching layer. Like, I think AI coaching is definitely coming online, and certainly it's being used in multiple ways, but I still think there's going to be people who want that human dimension for some time to come. Um and so there's just a limitation as to, especially when it comes to like psychological work, or I shouldn't say psychological, behavioral work, leadership work, that like it's hard to just sit with an AI and learn about yourself without that accountability and sort of like human attention component. So I don't know. I guess those are some of the thoughts I have about the
No, I love
process so
that.
far.
Well, I want to hit on the last bit you talked about, and it's that AI is it can replace humans, but do we really want it to? And that's something I noticed early last year, and I spent all of last year actually creating some frameworks that I call the AI proof pillars of a coaching or expertise driven business. I say coaching, it can work with any business or offer, but just that's who I serve most. So you're spot on. It can do coaching. However, do you really want it to? Because it's uber positive and it sure isn't going to call you out on a lot of things unless you explicitly tell it, and then it doesn't know how far you want to be pushed either, or you need to be pushed. So it kind of plays in its own little sandbox. And yeah,
Well, I think it does have this sort of what's someone said it really well, this like tendency to be affirmatory, or just to respond with like a positive um take on things
yeah.
unless you tell it not to. And like you said, then it doesn't really know how far to go. Like, I think that, there's this component of talking to another human being where they're reading your emotional state in a way that is, I still think we're pretty far off of having AI be able to do that. And and feeling into some of these behavioral cues that kind of tells a person when to stop, or like how much to push and things like that.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I'm still hopeful that like there's a place for the human in the coaching world, and that leadership development piece. I think it's kind of a sad outcome if that gets stripped out.
I I agree with you, and that's why I wrote this manifesto, this white paper. It's the I don't know what to call it. We'll call it a manifesto. That sounds fun. And if in it it states those that are selling courses, only courses, like, hey, buy my course, you go through it on your own, that's dead. It's like setting up a toll booth on a multi-lane interstate. Nobody's going to stop. They're going to laugh at you for having that because AI has commoditized it. But Logan, where I see the coaching industry headed is really around implementation, transformation, and experiences rather than, hey, let me hop on a call with you once a week and let me coach you out of it. That's cool. That still is important and appropriate in some cases, but can we layer in milestone based things? Can we
That's
layer
I'm so glad you brought this up.
Yeah.
I've some a learning along the way that I've had a number of executive coaches who I've worked with, and they've been at varying degrees of, I would say, their training experience, and um, I think abilities have ranged in quality,
Yeah.
which I think is somewhat reflective of the broader market. I think most people can call themselves a coach if they want to, without a whole lot of standards, and that's just the way it is. It's the reality. I have been very excited about our tool and capabilities in setting a benchmark for someone's leadership capacity and being able to show like milestone based achievement opportunities to get them to those next levels of readiness. Um, and so it gives me hope that we can have what you're talking about, more of a milestone based focus in the coaching industry, like
Yeah,
professionalize it a bit.
absolutely. And that's just one out of the 8 different pillars. And some of the other things that we should keep in mind within this industry, listener, I'm directly talking to you right now, is not just milestone based engagements, but in-person experiences. In-person events, that's costly. Well, it's only costly if you create it in a costly way. I'm not talking about doing a 500 person conference. I'm talking about meetups. I'm talking about getting sponsors to cover certain costs, taking a very small cohort to an incredible experience. I'm working with a client right now. Logan, this is going to be a tangent, but hear me out. I'm working with a client right now, and he's a Hollywood actor, and he spent 2 decades now curating relationships and networks and celebrity friends and whatnot. So we actually just launched an offer where he's taking a group of 14 people to a luxury with a capital L villa in Cannes, south of France, during the Cannes Film Fest. And he's doing red carpet stuff. He's having his celebrity friends over, and we're doing mastermind type stuff, except it's not come and mastermind in a business setting. It's no, you, you can't buy this with just, you can't just go to
Unique
somebody.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No,
So,
you asked me one of the trials and tribulations I've had along the way is
yeah, please.
I've been working with a fractional marketing person who's been fantastic, but
Yeah.
we were going down, we basically found ourselves fighting the LinkedIn algorithm, like wrestling the LinkedIn algorithm to try to get people's attention. That's like what everyone wants is just a fragment of people's attention. Um, and it feels like it's only getting worse. It's like continues to split and fragment.
Yeah.
It's how much is coming at us. But essentially, we found that, as AI was coming more and more online, everyone's just throwing their messaging into AI and generating this content that now goes on LinkedIn. And now there's a backlash to it where LinkedIn is actually not promoting, they're promoting individual stories and personal stories and quality comments. And so
Mhm.
I think what you're saying is speaking to that movement now where we're seeing people want something more authentic and like truly unique and different, but in a way that's like not just canned AI content because you can kind of tell when it's AI. And so anyway, at least at this period in our journey with AI, it's like I think we a turning point for me where she was like, "Can you please start telling individual stories about yourself and posting pictures?" And I was like, "Wow, it's just like here we are. This is just the reality of what we're sitting with." But it's anyway, it was a good learning journey as well because we were
No,
using some of the AI content generation stuff.
yeah. Well, I love that because something so powerful that you can do is documenting your journey. And if it's personal stuff, great. If it's business stuff, great. But it's your journey and you document it. And it's almost like the build in public movement, that type of thing, where founders are building their things in public and being extremely transparent about operations, finances, things like that. So anyway, well, let's do this. Let's land the plane. We've covered a lot of great stuff here. I'd love to land the plane on any sort of final words of wisdom for the listener here who maybe they're married to their current offer and it's not getting traction. I think that's a really good runway to land on. And any parting words for them, maybe some mindset?
Well, there's a um, personal experience and then maybe a particular tactical approach I would take. So the maybe words of wisdom are it's important to really deeply listen to your target audience. Like really come up with questions to ask them. Like, take some time and talk to 5 to 10 people that you're trying to reach and hear them out on like what their actual pain points are and what they're willing to pay for. It's kind of it can be, it can feel like a lot of work, but at the end of the day, you're saving yourself so much time when you actually listen to who you're trying to sell to. And then I have this, I've used AI prompts to actually create scripts for customer interviews. And it's been a
Oh,
really
really?
good exercise of using AI to create prompts for unbiased interviews.
Yeah.
And I use a particular tool called the Wise Guides. It's open to North Carolina based companies, but it's been just a game changer for me in like showing how to actually develop questions so they're not just trying to get them from trying to get a yes from people when um because people want you to feel good usually on a call, and they want to feel like you've had a good connection and they've delivered some kind of value to you. And that often biases the real pain point. So there's just ways you can ask questions that can get the right information.
Yeah, I love that. I'm big on that too, especially in earlier engagements. So, if the listener is out there saying, "Man, I know of a couple companies that I could refer this to. I'm connected to some people," then where should they go? How do they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Would love that. We're at founderready.io, www.founderready.io.
Excellent. Well, Logan, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for sharing some trials, tribulations, successes, and wins with AI and Founder Ready Institute. It's been wonderful. I'm looking forward to talking
Thanks
again.
so much. Yeah.
All right. Listener, take care. We'll talk soon. Bye. Hey there, Daniel Pope here again. I want to take a couple seconds to talk about my company, Be Known. We don't offer any courses or coaching programs. We're a done for you service provider because we know in this world, sometimes people just need a helping hand, a connected team, and an expert to be there every step of the way. So again, I really appreciate you listening and talk to you soon.